Welcome to Module 2 of the Climate Adaptation and Resilience Training Programme, funded by the Welsh Government. If you're a food or drink manufacturer in Wales, this training is for you. We're here to help you explore how climate change could affect your business, both today and in the future, and, more importantly, what you can do about it. This module comes with a supporting workbook full of extra insights and helpful templates. Climate-related events can disrupt your operations in ways you might not expect. That's why in this module we're introducing CASUP, the Climate Conscious Analysis and Critical Climate Points Framework. It's a structured and practical method to assess, prioritize, and respond to climate risks in your business. Here's what we'll cover in this module: how to approach climate impacts through a risk management lens, what CASUP is, and how it helps identify your business's critical climate points, examples of near misses and cascade events, and how to learn from them. And finally, we'll introduce another management tool, force field analysis, which you might want to use to help you implement change in your business to become more climate resilient. Starting with CASUP, which builds on the HACCP model that many in the food sector know well. Just as HACCP tracks food safety hazards, CASUP looks at how climate change might impact the critical parts of your business. We've identified 6 key climate points that you'll explore more deeply in modules 3 to 8. Starting at the top of this diagram and moving in a clockwise direction, module 3 looks at premises and access. How vulnerable is your site and transport network? Module 4 covers manufacturing and processing. How might climate change affect your processing operations? We take a look at inputs and supply chains in Module 5. We know that supply chains are a critical climate concern to many businesses, and we cover this important area along with other business inputs in Module 5. Module 6 looks at the financial and legal implications of climate change on your food or drink business. We cover cost-effective adaptation, insurance, securing finance, and managing exposure to financial and reputational losses. Module 7 covers people and service providers. How are staff and service providers affected by climate events? And finally, Module 8 concentrates on customers, consumers, and reputation. We will cover customer relationship management and how consumers are responding to concerns about climate change. We look at risks and opportunities which are emerging and what this means for your new product development plans and how you can incorporate your climate resilient approach into your sales pitches. There's a lot to look at on this slide, but the key message is that CASUP isn't about starting from scratch. It's about adding a climate lens to the good work that you're already doing, and this slide sets out a step-by-step approach. The starting point is making sure you add climate risks and impacts to your existing risk assessments and registers. If you already have a business continuity plan in place, have you considered climate impacts such as floods or storm damage? And whilst it's crucial to consider all the risks, don't forget that climate change may bring about opportunities. So have you considered these in your ideation sessions for new product development? The CASUP plan isn't a one-off plan. It's an ongoing process towards building climate resilience in your business. So, starting with risk management, it's easy to feel powerless in the face of climate change, but applying risk management techniques helps put you back in control. Think back to Covey's circles of control that we covered in Module 1. You can't stop a storm, but you can prepare for it by identifying, assessing, controlling, or mitigating the risks from storm damage, and then continuing to monitor those risks. Risk assessment is based on a simple calculation and by scoring two elements of a risk. The first element is likelihood. How probable is that event? The second element is severity. How bad would the impact be? Use a 1 to 5 score, with 1 being very low likelihood or impact and 5 being very high likelihood or impact. Then multiply these two scores together and you get a final risk score. The higher the score, the greater the urgency for action. This red, amber, green matrix helps you to prioritize where to act. As we highlighted in the previous slide, scoring likelihood and severity from 1 to 5 and then multiplying the scores together results in a final score to go on the matrix. As you can see, a risk scoring a relatively low 2 for severity, but is highly likely to happen and therefore scores 5, puts it into the red section. Whereas a risk that carries a highly severe impact, but is very unlikely to happen, falls within the green section. The key to this traffic light matrix is that red shows a high likelihood and high severity, so mitigating these risks is a priority. The amber risks should be monitored in case anything changes that moves them into the red section. And finally, green risks. Well, these are low risks for now. The message is to prioritize and focus on the reds first, and of course plan updates to your risk assessments to make sure you take account of changing circumstances, which mean you have to reprioritize. Let's think about possible climate-related disruptions and remember the terminology from Module 1 when we talked about climate shock events and climate stresses. It's useful to think about near misses that might have arisen from a shock event. What if a factory on your industrial estate floods as a result of heavy and prolonged rainfall, but thankfully your premises were unaffected? How long did it take that factory to recover and be operational? And what could you learn from that near miss? Or perhaps you may be affected by a cascade event. For example, you haven't been flooded, but your local substation has and leaves you without electricity. How long could you cope for? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or even longer? This type of cascade event is called exactly that because the impacts cascade like dominoes. The cascade impact could be location-based or it could be supply chain-based. For example, floods in growing regions affecting your ability to source key raw materials, or tropical storms in Southeast Asia causing shipping delays on critical production equipment. Considering these types of near misses and cascade impacts helps with your preparation. So what does a near miss look like for your business? Well, it's that moment when you say, phew, I'm glad that didn't happen to us. Was there a flood near you? Or did a supplier nearly miss a key delivery that would have stopped your production? These examples give you the opportunity to start playing through the scenario as if it did happen to you. What would you have done? What monitoring systems can you put in place to help you spot these types of occurrences? It's fairly simple to monitor the weather, but how do you monitor supply chains? Do you subscribe to any news feeds or industry monitoring that could help be your early warning system? Just as you want to foster a strong health and safety culture with colleagues being confident to report a near miss, encourage people to report in the same way or highlight where they've seen what could happen to another business. Your regular assessments and reviews of operations could reveal vulnerabilities. Are you seeing trends? Is there part of your industrial estate that regularly floods? Or are prices of raw materials and ingredients sourced from different regions on a continual upward trend? When you've got over that phew, that was close moment, were there any actions that you identified? Make a record of these to incorporate them into your business continuity planning so they are not forgotten about. Here's an exercise to try with your team. The scenario is that flooded substation which has knocked out power to your area. What if you lost power for extended periods of time? Just one day, 2 days, or even a week? What would stop working? What backup systems do you have in place? Do you have alternative manufacturing partners or stored stock? This type of exercise is worth thinking through, as it's easier to plan now than to make panicked decisions in an emergency. We looked at a step-by-step approach to identifying near misses, and we can take a similar approach to identifying cascade effects. Ask yourself about possible triggers, such as the loss of power. If electricity fails, what else is affected? Access to water, so how do you maintain food safe standards of hygiene? How do you communicate with customers and other stakeholders? Will you be able to make and receive payments? And how will this impact your cash flow? So think about what and where those interconnections are. If one of your key suppliers is knocked out by a storm, what is the impact on your stock levels? Do you carry sufficient levels to provide a buffer, or can you quickly source alternative supplies? Module 5 of this training covers a range of strategies to help embed resilience in your supply chains. This approach to mapping cascade effects helps you identify critical vulnerabilities and think about what safeguards you can put in place. Who should be monitoring these potential triggers? What are your contingency plans, and have you assigned responsibilities to test these plans? Let's now introduce another change management tool. This one is called force field analysis. This technique helps you understand what's driving change in your business, the factors on the left-hand side of this slide, and what factors might be resisting that change, and these are the factors on the right-hand side. For example, a driver could be that your trade customers are asking you to reduce your carbon emissions in order to continue being a supplier to them. However, a resistor could be the high cost of investment to move to green energy sources. Understanding these forces and their respective strengths helps you to manage change more effectively. Moving on to how you can practically use this tool with your team. You can score each force from 1 to 5 based on its strength. A higher score means that the force has a stronger influence, while a lower score means less impact. Then adding up the driving and resisting forces to see the balance between the positive and negative factors. Think about what you can do to strengthen the drivers for change or reduce or eliminate the restraining forces. This is a flexible and dynamic tool, and you should revisit it as circumstances in your business change. For example, you may have a new team member who joins who is very knowledgeable about alternative sources of energy, which will go a long way towards removing the uncertainty about your choices of different energy sources. Or perhaps a grant becomes available, which will reduce the investment cost and make it more affordable. This slide shows what a force field analysis might look like in action. You can use the line length or scores to show impact or the relative strength of that force. Then adjust your plan. For example, investing in staff training in new technologies could reduce the impact of colleague resistance to that new technology. Or accessing green supply chain finance from one of your retail customers may reduce the relative strength and negative impact of limited financial resources. This method helps you target your efforts for maximum impact. As we're coming to the end of this module, let's revisit what we've explored. We've looked at risk management and how to score and prioritize risks to make the best use of your resources. We've introduced the CASSEP methodology, which identified those critical climate points in your food or drink manufacturing business. We've highlighted the power of learning from near misses and cascade events. And finally, we looked at force field analysis as a change management tool that can support your transition to a climate resilient business. Here are 3 actions you can implement straight away now you've completed Module 2. You can review your existing risk assessments. Do they cover climate-related risks? You can identify who else in your team should be involved in these risk assessments. And you can share links to this training. Encourage your team to complete the modules and bring ideas to the table. If you want to explore how your premises and access routes could be affected by climate change, then please do join us for Module 3, where we'll dig into these risks and highlight what you can do about them. Thank you for joining us for Module 2. Don't forget, there is a workbook which supports this module. This is full of helpful information and links to useful tools and templates which will help you turn this learning into action and prepare your business for climate change.